Chair
Chairman.
recognizes Ms. Mace from South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Chairman Comer. First of all, my first question is, who bribed Hunter Biden to be here today? That's my first question. Second question, you are the epitome of white privilege, coming into the Oversight Committee, spitting in our face, ignoring a congressional subpoena to be deposed. What are you afraid of? You have no balls to come up here and—
Mr. Chairman, point of inquiry.
Mr. Chairman,
If
The ladies recognize—
I'm not
if the gentlelady wants to
stupid
hear from Hunter
things.
Biden, we can hear from him right now, Mr.
And you
Chairman.
win
Let's take a
stupid
vote and
prizes.
hear from
I'm
Hunter Biden.
speaking.
What are you
women
afraid
allowed
of?
to speak
Hold
in
on,
here?
hold on.
Why-
Order,
why are you
order,
guys not
order.
willing to let
Ms.
us
Are
Mace,
women
Ms.
allowed to
Mace.
speak in
All
here
right.
or no?
Okay.
Are women allowed to speak in here or no?
Order.
Because you keep interrupting me.
I'll interrupt the
You keep
chairman. I don't
interrupting.
know that he's a lady.
I think that Hunter Biden should be arrested right here, right now, and go straight to jail. Our nation is founded on the rule of law.
Come on.
And the premise that the law applies equally to everyone, no matter what your last
Point of order,
name
Mr. Chairman.
is.
Point of
It
order.
doesn't matter who you are.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Biggs over here.
Donald Trump Jr.
Biggs over here.
State your point, Mr. Biggs.
Yeah, my point of order is this. Are we going to continue on with this blatant interruption? This is absurd and inappropriate. I intend to give my statement. I don't intend to have anybody interrupted. I'm not going to interrupt your statements. I think you should have decorum and courtesy and don't act like a bunch of nimrods.
You just interrupted a woman.
And that's five,
I got
we,
permission.
Can we agree everyone has
Mr.
5
Chairman,
minutes? Can we agree?
Point of order again. The assertion that I interrupted was absolutely false. That's typical of the gentleman who spoke it. I got permission to speak from the chairman. I spoke. I was interrupted yet again by the gentleman who doesn't choose to go through the chair and follow proper order. I encourage us, I think if we're going to have any respect at all, we need to have proper decorum.
Well said, well said.
I'd like to finish.
The rules are everyone's going to be recognized for 5 minutes. Anyone that wants to be recognized will be recognized for 5 minutes. Ms. Mace has 4 minutes and 13 seconds left. Chair recognizes Ms. Mace.
It does not matter who you are, where you come from, or who your father is, or your last name. Yes, I'm looking at you, Hunter Biden, as I'm speaking to you. You are not above the law at all. The facts in this case are crystal clear. This committee used and issued a lawful subpoena to Hunter Biden, a critical witness in this committee's investigation into Biden family corruption. Hunter Biden and his lawyers did not claim privilege of any kind because clearly he has none. They didn't contest the legitimacy of our reasons for issuing this subpoena, no reasons, because they clearly are legitimate. And yet, he refused to comply. Trump's family members, Don Trump Jr., he did not defy a congressional subpoena. He showed up multiple times for multiple depositions for several hours. In doing so, Hunter Biden broke the law. He did so deliberately. You did so flagrantly. You showed up on the Hill, on the Senate side, the day of that congressional subpoena to defy it and spit in the face of this committee. That's what you did. The question the American people are asking us is, what is Hunter Biden so afraid of? Why can't you show up for a congressional deposition? You're here for a political stunt. This is just a PR stunt to you. This is just a game that you are playing with the American people. You're playing with the truth. Hunter Biden wasn't afraid to sell access to Joe Biden to the highest bidder when he was in elected office. He wasn't afraid to trade on the Biden brand, peddle influence, and share those ill-gotten gains with members of his family, including Joe Biden. He wasn't afraid to compromise the integrity of the presidency and vice presidency by involving Joe Biden in shady business deals with our foreign adversaries. But Hunter Biden, you were too afraid to show up for a deposition, and you still can't today. I believe that Hunter Biden should be held completely in contempt. I think he should be hauled off to jail right now, because it wasn't long ago, too, my friends on the other side of the aisle, that you also believed in the power of a congressional subpoena. Not long ago at all. You believed in holding those who refused to comply with a congressional subpoena accountable. And I stood with each and every one of you. I am the only member in this room today who has held a member of my own party in contempt of Congress for not showing up for a subpoena. And I see nothing but complete hypocrisy on the other side of the aisle. The ranking member of this committee even so eloquently put it, the lesson is, please tell your children out there in America, if you get a subpoena to go before Congress, go. You have a legal responsibility to do so. So the hypocrisy is stunning. What are we to tell our children today? There's nothing the other side can say with a straight face. As the only member of this committee to vote to hold a member of contempt of my own party, let me be clear, this should not be a partisan issue. If Congress issues a subpoena, you show up, period. This is not a responsibility we take lightly. It brings no joy for us to do this, but the president's son broke the law and must be held accountable in the same way anybody else would. I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to do so. And my last message to you, Hunter Biden, you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes.
Gentleman's time's expired. Chair recognizes Ms. Green from Georgia for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
he
Excuse
going?
me, Hunter.
Whoa, whoa,
Apparently,
whoa.
you're afraid
Where
of
you
my
going?
words.
Whoa!
Oh.
I'd like to reclaim my time, Mr. Chairman.
Kind of burst their bubble. Wow, that's too bad.
I think it's clear and obvious for everyone watching this hearing today that Hunter Biden is terrified of strong conservative Republican women because he can't even face my words as I was about to speak to him. What a coward. And this is also a coward that sat right here in front of Mickey Babbitt, Ashley Babbitt's mother, who was murdered on January 6th by Michael Byrd, the Capitol police officer. And you want to talk about a committee, a political sham? I'll totally disagree with you, Ms. Mace. That January 6th committee was not bipartisan. It was a complete setup to go after President Trump, go after Republicans, go after anyone that believes in free and fair elections, people that believe the Department of Justice should be fair and balanced, not a political weaponized department of the federal government that is targeting President Trump, his supporters, people that walked in the Capitol on January 6th, and now people that stood outside the Capitol. There's been no justice for Ashley Babbitt's family. Michael Byrd has never been charged with anything. He was let off, and he was given a promotion and allowed to walk free. And Hunter Biden just walked out. That is an example of not following the law. Hunter Biden thinks he's above the law. Don Jr., Eric Trump, Ivanka, Trump family members had to come in to Democrat subpoenas and be questioned by Democrats for over 8 hours, each of them. Hunter Biden runs away. Hunter Biden did not come when we subpoenaed him. He did not follow the law. And then one of our colleagues helped him evade his subpoena by going and reserving a press conference for him on his behalf, helped him evade the subpoena, helped Hunter Biden break the law. Let's talk about his own father's words. President Joe Biden said in October 2021 that individuals who defy subpoenas from the January 6th House Select Committee should be prosecuted. And the Justice Department indicted Steve Bannon for doing so in November 2021. Hunter Biden's father, the President of the United States, said that he should be prosecuted. Anyone that defies a subpoena should be prosecuted. Hunter Biden didn't show up for his subpoena. Hunter Biden showed up today to make a clown show of himself, to show that he is nothing but someone that will not obey the law, that wants to show up when he wants to, and sits here with a smug look on his face and runs away when it's my turn to talk. Not only is he a criminal, but he is a coward. Nothing but a coward. Let's talk about voting for things. We have members on this committee that are on record on their own Twitter accounts talking about people blowing off subpoenas on the January 6th committee that states the rule of law is stirring all over America. That's Representative Jamie Raskin. Right here, I'll enter this for the record. Representative Jamie Raskin, Steve Bannon has been convicted of acting in contempt of Congress. My argument with Rep. Gates is now settled. If subpoenaed, you show up and assert any privilege you think applies to specific questions, but you can't blow off the proceeding. He blew it off. Walking in today is too late. We have to hold Hunter Biden in contempt of Congress because he's not above the law, and neither is the President of the United States. And this committee has produced more evidence that any Democrat ever dreamed of having against President Trump and his family, while they constantly make up lies and attacks about the Trump family and President Trump. They make them up all day long. It's nothing but a political witch hunt. This committee has produced the evidence that Joe Biden has taken payments through his son, Hunter Biden, and all their dozens of fake LLCs. You can't buy a Biden product. You can't hire a Biden for a service unless you're a foreign country and you're asking and paying for political favors and political payouts. And that is exactly what the Biden brand is all about. We will hold Hunter Biden in contempt. And if the Democrats are not the hypocrites that they constantly display that they are, then they will vote for contempt of Congress because they voted for it on every other subpoena that didn't go through. And here's the last thing. You guys had your chance. If you wanted to hold people in contempt of Congress, you could have done it last Congress, but you didn't do it, and it would have been a major mistake because you know that it could have been turned exactly back on you. Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Actually,
I'll yield.
yield
let
to
me yield to Miss May. She hasn't gotten enough quality TV time today, so I'll give her a little more time.
Thank you, and then I'll yield to my colleague from Florida as well. I'm going to try to be quick here because I was accused by my colleague on the other side of the aisle about my white privilege. I want to say, number one, as the former ranking member of the Civil Rights Subcommittee under Chairman Raskin last session, I take great pride as a white female Republican to address the inadequacies in our country. I come from a district where rich and poor is literally black and white, black versus white on most days. My largest jail in my district, which is the largest jail in the state of South Carolina, has had 7 or 8 deaths in the last 2 years. And I was there with our black and African American council members trying to get the right thing done. And I come from a district where black men have been killed by law enforcement, tased to death in our jails, and I've stood with those black families because I know the differences that they see day to day in their life, and I try to do the best that I can. I come from a district where the first African American, first black man in the U.S. House of Representatives was Joseph P. Rainey, represented my district back in the 1800s with that. The last black member of the U.S. House of Representatives before Reconstruction came from South Carolina, George P. Murray, the black man, former slave and entrepreneur who founded the Republican Party in South Carolina. One of the founding members was named Robert Smalls, who commandeered a Confederate ship and gave it to Union soldiers and served his country admirably in the process. In my district, it was Harriet Tubman, and you can see it in the movie Harriet, who rescued more than 700 slaves in one night in Beaufort County, South Carolina. So I am very well aware of our rich history and try to recognize it as best as I can in the position that I have, and I resent the fact that you're going to throw that in my face up here. I'm one of the few people that you'll see on my side of the aisle trying to do the right thing for the right people every single day. And I would like to yield the remaining balance of time to my colleague from Florida.
This has been a very interesting hearing. Mr. Waltz, welcome to Oversight. Yes, it usually gets like this. Look, let's be very clear. This isn't about Hunter Biden's white privilege. It's about Hunter Biden's Democrat privilege. Because Donald Trump Jr. showed up for 5 congressional subpoenas. There was never this circus where he was subpoenaed by House Democrats and he showed up on the Senate side or showed up at the White House to answer in some fake, phony, lame press conference, not actually going to the House and doing what he was compelled by a subpoena to do. Hunter Biden did that. And then he has the unmitigated gall to show up here when we know that we're going through actually the legislation for contempt with, by the way, Mr. Chairman, we should actually get to the legislation of contempt. The speechifying is great, but let's do our business, members. He has the gall to come here, show up, and then when the Democrats are saying, hey, he wants to speak, he leaves. This is a joke. This is a farce. The man has been subpoenaed by Congress. Oh, and by the way, the January 6th committee, Mr. Raskin, which you did sit on, by the way, that was not a normally ordered committee of Congress because Nancy Pelosi did not want the Republican members that then Leader McCarthy put up.
According to the courts, it was.
I my time, sir.
Will you yield for
I
a correction?
I was respectful of your time. I didn't say anything. So, ladies and gentlemen, Let's move forward with our business. He should be held in contempt. There was a subpoena. He did not answer it. Any other American will be held in contempt by Congress. Any other. This is Democrat privilege of the highest order. Let's do our jobs. I yield.
Gentleman yields. Chair now recognizes Ms. Ocasio-Cortez from New York.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to address briefly, quickly, that moment about privilege and all of this that we're seeing here. It was a very beautiful speech by the gentlelady, who, as she mentioned, was helped lead on the now majority side, the Civil Rights and Civil Liberties Subcommittee. But I think it's so exemplary of the point that she also oversaw the elimination of the Civil Rights Subcommittee on this committee, which really kind of gives the whole game away. We show up, we give speeches, we give flowery words, but at the end of the day, participate in the structural erosion of the rights and representation of people that are marginalized, women, people of color, people that just need to see their due process and civil liberties protected in this country. But I will move on. As also the Republican side had mentioned in their many raisings of the January 6th committee, that it's not just Hunter Biden, you, me, any individual subject to equal treatment under the law, to be held up to accountability under the law, but it is also these committees and this committee that is subject to oversight and law. We must comply with the law here as well. Now, I may be one of the very few people that actually believes in Congress, in this country. But I do, and many of us do here. And we have an obligation to engage in good faith participation to execute and comply with a subpoena. The chairman said in front of the country several times to Hunter Biden, you can show up here in front of the world, in front of the public. Hunter Biden took him up on that offer. He said, I will show up in public. I will show up in public. He showed up here today. He showed up here in the past. And Mr. Chairman, I know you do your best with what you've got, but you've got members here that have submitted falsified evidence to the record. You have members here that have submitted and mischaracterized closed-door hearings, and people want to say back and forth at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what party it's happened from. You've got members who've engaged in revenge porn in this committee. So it is understandable why Hunter Biden would want to testify in front of the public for the American people to be able to witness that testimony for themselves. You've got members who've defied subpoenas. You've got members who we are 1 year into the term asking what the rules are at the beginning of the committee. The book was given to us on day one. And so what we should do is allow the man to testify. I believe in the power of the Oversight Committee. Frankly, I believe in it regardless of whether Republicans or Democrats have the chair, because I believe that this committee should have the power of oversight. And we cannot do that on a partisan basis. And so for that, I implore this committee to allow Hunter Biden to testify publicly. I implore and I ask for that to happen. And we cannot do that by getting engaged in this back and forth on a defiance of the subpoena. Let him comply. Let him do it today. Let him do it tomorrow. But let the man do it. And with that, I yield back to the ranking member.
Will you go and yield?
Chairman.
The chair recognizes Ms. Green.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to talk about the importance of Hunter Biden obeying his subpoena and some of the evidence that we had questions about today when we had arranged with Hunter Biden and his attorneys for him to come in. Then he evaded his subpoena, and there's serious evidence that needs to be discussed. That has to do with many of the bank reports that we had read in the Treasury, outlining very serious crimes that Hunter Biden had committed or has allegedly committed. And then we have evidence of that. Crimes of Mann Act violation, human trafficking, these were in the bank reports, and the American people deserve to know about it. Here's another excerpt from a bank report.
Mr. Chairman, what is
Talking about
Point of
a
order,
victim
point
in
of order.
California. I reclaim my
Hold on
time.
one moment, Ms. Green. State your point, Mr. Goldman.
what is the gentle lady just showing to the cameras?
This is her 5 minutes on your amendment.
Well, if it's the suspicious activity reports, there was an agreement with the Treasury Department that the committee would not disclose the information.
It's my understanding what she's showing has already been disclosed in the public long before we started this investigation.
So this is in the public domain?
Yeah.
Wait,
Is that your representation?
is it a verbal representation? It's in the public domain?
This is in the public domain. I reclaim my time. Victim 1 is a California resident currently employed with FSS Management between June 2018 October 2021. Victim 1, Hunter Biden's victim, was employed by Owasco PC as evidenced by her receipt of biweekly payroll remittances from Owasco PC. However, during this same period of time, victim 1 also received large round dollar wires from Owasco PC, which reference new hire, K-wage, 10K golf member, and pay. Victim 1 received 5 wires totaling $44,508 in a 4-month period between June 12, 2018 and October 2nd, 2018. These are reports that are calling so-called employees of Hunter Biden and his law firm victims. And here's evidence of Hunter Biden violating the Mann Act. This is trafficking women across state lines for prostitution. This is an airplane ticket showing that it was purchased by Hunter Biden for this victim, where she flew from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C., and then the next day flew back to Los Angeles. The date is she flew in from Los Angeles on June 14th, 2018, and was flown back to Los Angeles the following day. And this is pictures that Hunter Biden had produced and uploaded to porn websites, and it's marked out.
Mr. Chairman,
These
point of
are
parliamentary
marked
inquiry.
out, showing
Point of
proof
parliamentary inquiry, Mr.
proof
Chairman.
of Mann
Okay.
Act violations. Democrats should not be
Okay.
offended by pictures
Mr.
that
Chairman,
black out.
Have I been
things.
recognized?
They should be
Objection. I have
offended
a
by
point of
actual
parliamentary
human
inquiry.
trafficking.
Mr.
All
Chairman,
right, state your point.
thank you kindly, Mr. Chairman. On July 26th, I sent you a letter about the last time this happened, when the gentlelady introduced before this committee, without any notice to anyone, nude photos, pornographic images that were completely irrelevant to the purpose of the hearing itself. And my question to you is, are members allowed to simply put up sensationalistic, voyeuristic, pornographic images if they're not relevant to the actual object of the legislative proceeding? I want a parliamentary ruling on that.
Mr. Askin, that's probably part of the questioning for Mr. Biden, violations of the Mann Act. Ms. Green's led on that issue.
No, this is a
These
question
are
of
already,
the rules
these
of the
have already,
committee.
these pictures have already been entered into the record.
So in other words, you have accepted the idea that members can introduce irrelevant, sexually based, voyeuristic.
How is this irrelevant?
Well,
How does it relate to Joe Biden?
How does it relate to?
We're not doing
well-
a criminal investigation of Hunter
No,
Biden.
we've
Point-
had
point-
we've
point
had
of order, Mr.
several
Chairman.
people
Point of
that
order.
have testified in the FBI, DOJ, IRS that they were told to stand down investigating various crimes of the Biden family.
Okay.
Did Joe Biden tell them to stand down? Who told the IRS, the FBI, and everyone else to stand down? This is what we're investigating.
None of those-
Reclaiming my
Stop
time, reclaiming my
obstructing.
time, Mr. Chairman.
I believe it's my time.
No,
I'm reclaiming
no,
my
I have
time.
been
All right, we've stopped the clock.
I
You're
object.
good.
I object to the use of this exhibit, Mr. Chairman. This is not a criminal investigation of the Mann Act or prostitution or anything else. It's completely irrelevant to a subpoena, the validity of that subpoena, and whether or not there's been compliance with that subpoena. It's totally extraneous, immaterial, and irrelevant. And someone should explain that to Ms. Green if she doesn't understand.
point of
This is-
parliamentary
this is-
inquiry.
And let the chair
Understand it.
rule. You had a point of order. The chair's rule.
I
This
object to
is
the use
evidence.
of this-
You objected. We got that. Evidence that Hunter is a material witness in this investigation.
Well, does
Now-
that mean you can put up pornographic pictures of other people that Hunter Biden has met in his life? I mean, come on. Like, how far does that go? It's not relevant to your motion.
Well, you can ask him that in the
It's
deposition.
not relevant. No, honestly, Mr. Chairman, it's not relevant to your motion of whether or not he violated that subpoena. How do those naked pictures have been?
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
This is not the Jerry Springer
Take your
show.
point.
This is the United States House of Representatives.
And let me
Come
say
on.
this.
Talked
Let me
about a
say
bunch of
this.
things
It's
today
not
that weren't
pornography. It's appropriately censored evidence in an ongoing investigation.
Yes.
Okay? It's appropriately censored evidence in an ongoing investigation.
Censored-
Mr.
All right, I
Biggs
just want to
raised
say,
a point.
pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 17, I object to the use of this exhibit as irrelevant, extraneous, sensationalistic, voyeuristic, and totally antithetical to the legislative purposes of this committee in this House. This is not the Jerry Springer show. Yield back.
The committee will now resume consideration of the Goldman Amendment. Ms. Green has 2 minutes remaining.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, this information is extremely important because Hunter Biden refused to obey his subpoena, and we are holding him in contempt of Congress for doing so. This is important evidence of human trafficking, Mann Act violations that we had questions for the president's son about. And there's evidence. I'd like to show the evidence of payments. These are payments made from Hunter Biden and his law firm to so-called assistants. These were not assistants. These are prostitutes that he was trafficking. And I think these victims are important. And just because our Democrat colleagues don't like the evidence doesn't mean that it's not relevant. And I'm especially offended by the women on this committee that don't care about these women's rights. They're victims of Hunter Biden. Here's another excerpt from bank reports talking about victims. These are banks, and these banks are identifying these women as victims. Victim 2, talking about victim 2, victim 1, each appear to be in the adult entertainment industry and are receiving payments from Hunter and Owasco PC. It is unclear what relationship Hunter or Owasco PC have with these individuals. And based on public media, it appears possible the payments may be associated to prostitution or adult entertainment services. Victim 2 is a New York resident and employed as freelance. Per internet research, she is a social media influencer and adult entertainer. She received 6 quick pays for $6,250 from Hunter between 3/29/2018 and 11/20/2018. This is clear evidence, Mr. Chairman. These are important questions we have for the president's son pertaining to Mann Act violations. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chair now recognizes Ms. McClain for 5 minutes.
So I just want to bring everything back home. This hearing is a contempt of Congress hearing for Hunter Biden. It's not about January 6th. It's not about Mr. Perry. It's not about white privilege. It's a contempt of Congress hearing about Hunter Biden. Although I appreciate the diversion tactics, like my colleague from Florida said, let's get back to our business, which is actually the contempt of Congress. I also want to thank my colleague, Ms. Cortez. I agree. Let him comply. Right? Let him comply. And with our ranking member, let's follow the rule of law. So in contrast, let me read the rules of the committee real quickly. It's on page 9 of the rule book, right? And it talks about notices. Notices for the taking of depositions shall specify the date, the time and the place of examination. Depositions may continue from day to day. Then you go to section D, consultation with the ranking minority member of the committee shall include, listen for it, 3 calendar days notice. So although I'm sure any defendant would like to come in and say, Judge, I want to come in on this day, and the defendant is going to tell the judge and the legal system how the trial is going to run, unfortunately, that's not how it works. It's really simple. So I do agree with you. Let him comply. Let him comply with the subpoena that we gave him. He chose not to. So therefore, we are holding Hunter Biden in contempt of Congress. And I would also like to say, you had the opportunity when you all were in charge, or y'all were in charge, to do the same with the members on our side of the aisle. You didn't do that. That's not our fault. That's yours. So we're here to talk about Hunter Biden. For everyone watching today, and for my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, I want to be clear again what this hearing is really about. Hunter Biden was subpoenaed to answer Congress, right? That's it. Questions. But he violated federal law by failing to appear before the committee. You can't spin that, for my colleague on the other side of the aisle. You can't spin that. The bottom line is Hunter did not show up, and he committed a crime. You see, we are a land of laws, and we must follow those laws. And that's what we're here to do today. Instead, he was on the grounds of the U.S. Capitol where he made a public statement without taking questions from the media, conveniently. So instead of showing up for his legal obligation, he showed up just steps away from a hearing room to spit in the face of this Congress. And unfortunately, that is Hunter Biden's MO. We're merely doing our job. What we're doing here today is showing the country that Hunter will not receive special treatment due to his last name. It's very, very simple. And he will be held to the same standard that every other American citizen would be expected to do. Can you imagine if you're average America and you get a subpoena and you go in and tell the judge, hey, let me tell you, here's how it's going to work, judge. I'm not showing up. I'm not showing up. I'm going to do it my way. I know we have laws, but don't worry about those laws because that would never fly. But that's exactly what Hunter Biden's doing. And if we care about this institution, if we care about democracy, at some point in time, we have to hold the law and people who break the law accountable. Or, like my colleague said, we are going to have anarchy. So simply put, it's not about anything else. We're talking about Hunter Biden and his non-compliance. And you can get up and scream and holler and rant and rave and talk about everything but the fact we subpoenaed Congress legally Hunter Biden, and he chose not to show up. Read the rules. He has to follow the law. I know that's a very foreign concept, but you have to do it. And for the Biden family, you too have to follow the laws. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of things. First, it was said in this hearing, Mr. Chairman, about you specifically, that you repeatedly said you would give Mr. Biden any opportunity. He could choose which one to come and speak in front of this committee. He could do it by deposition. He could do it by open hearing. It was up to him. The truth of the matter, though, is that the chairman's words are not binding. Like, no other member's words of Congress are really not binding. The binding article.
Point of order. Does the chairman agree with that? Point of order. Does the chairman agree?
Are you going to restore my time?
Point of order. Just point of order.
Okay.
Does the chairman agree that the chairman's words are not binding on the committee?
That's not a point of order. It has nothing to do with the order of this hearing. Thank you. Can I go back to 4 minutes and 34 seconds? That's where I was before I was interrupted by Mr. Raskin.
Yes, reset the clock.
Thank you. Thank you. What is binding is the actual written document, the written language in the subpoena, because a subpoena from this committee is also signed off on by the clerk of the House. That is the binding document that matters here. That is what governs. That's number one. Number two, that was said in this hearing. It was said that our witnesses said that there was no basis for an impeachment. But remember, members on the Democrat side of the aisle, what was said by Mr. Turley at the time was that there was plenty of evidence for the continuation of an impeachment inquiry. And the purpose of that hearing was the relevance basis for an impeachment inquiry. The House has now voted for an impeachment inquiry. And one of the first things that the House did after the vote of an impeachment inquiry was to subpoena Hunter Biden to appear. Hunter Biden has evaded that subpoena. So flagrantly did he evade it that he decided to show up at the Senate side to give a press conference, and Eric Swalwell, a member of the House, helped him get that time on the Senate side to give a press conference. That's a flagrant violation of a congressional subpoena. Secondarily, he has the gall to show up here when we're actually discussing contempt. And he didn't stay. He was sitting right over there. He's not here now. He said he wants to talk. He could have stayed through the whole proceeding. He chose to leave. That's his business. But he was subpoenaed to come here. Back in December, he chose not to of his own volition. He's in violation of that subpoena, a subpoena that was executed with the signature of the clerk of the House of Representatives. That is the document that is binding. That's what we work off of. Mr. Chairman, I actually want to submit for the record an article from The Hill written by Jonathan Turley, and it is titled Eric Swalwell and the Politics of Contempt.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you. I'm glad something got admitted to the record. Last, a couple other points. One quick point I want to make, and this is in reference to the minority's report about this $7.8 million. I want the minority to understand one very important distinction between President Biden and President Trump. President Trump has an international real estate portfolio that he has amassed over decades. I'm quite sure if you go back through all of the hotel receipts before he was president of the United States, that you had foreign dignitaries staying at Trump hotels all across the world.
Will the gentleman yield?
I'm not going to yield, Mr. Raskin. I'm making a point because they're actually very nice hotels. They look good. People like staying there. President Trump was not running the Trump Organization when he was president of the United States. To my recollection, Eric Trump, the president's son, was actually running the Trump Organization when President Trump was president of the United States. So if he had a portfolio of hotels and people choose, through Expedia, through Kayak, through Hotels.com, if they choose to go and stay there, how is that the president being in violation of what the emoluments clause? Is that what you're citing? Stop. Ladies and gentlemen, America, this is ridiculous. The Biden family has no business. They've never had a business except for politics. And the one thing that the Oversight Committee, in conjunction with the Ways and Means Committee and in conjunction with the Judiciary Committee, has always been able to demonstrate is that they shook down foreign nations for millions, 26 million at the latest count, and growing, millions. And there was never any business entity involved except public corruption and a pay-for-play scheme. The House Oversight Committee would like to get to the bottom of this under the impeachment inquiry of the House. We have questions for Hunter Biden. We issued a subpoena for him to answer said questions. He ignored a congressional subpoena as a private citizen. There are many attorneys on the other side of the aisle. If you had one of your clients in your private practice ignore a congressional subpoena as a private citizen, you would advise them not to, because they would be held in contempt and they would actually be punished by the Department of Justice. So I find it interesting to see today.
Yield so I can
I'm not going to
respond?
yield, Mr. Goldman, because I had a question for you earlier. You didn't want to take my question, so I'm not going to take yours. Thank you. So, in closing, I will say, private citizens, yes, they have a responsibility to answer congressional subpoenas. They do. Hunter Biden had it, and he was flagrant. He decided to give a press conference. So we're going to do this business, and he should be held in contempt by the full House of Representatives. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.